Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session Zero Trust Meets Data Reality, Insider Risk, DLP, and Compliance Automation in Microsoft 365, which is a part of Cyber Back to School 2025 sessions. I am Shilpi Mittal, working in a food manufacturing organization. With me, we have Ankit Gupta, who works in a financial organization. In this session, we will explore how Microsoft 365's security and compliance tool under the Microsoft Purview suite implement zero trust principle to protect data. The focus is on insider risk management, data loss prevention, and automating compliance, all critical in today's landscape where threat can come from within as well as outside, and regulations are increasingly stringent. This is technical deep dive aimed at IT professionals across all industries, demonstrating how Microsoft's integrated tools can secure sensitive data and streamline compliance tasks. Here's our roadmap for this session. We will start by examining the data reality, the current threat and regulatory landscape that require a new approach. Then we will review zero trust security principles, especially as they relate to data protection. Next, we will dive into Microsoft's 365 capability, how Microsoft Purview tools help classify and protect data, prevent data loss, and detect inside, insider risk. We will see how insider risk management and DLP function in Microsoft 365 and how compliance automations through tools like Compliance Manager eases the burden of regulatory requirements. We will highlight the integration and intelligence AI ML Microsoft has built into these two solutions. For example, adaptive protection that dynamically adjusts policies based on risk, and security copilot that adds in analysis. Finally, we will wrap up with best practices and practical next step for implementing these ideas. When Satya Nadella said that at the World Economic Forum, we was reminded he was reminding us that security is not just about celebrating innovation. It's about anticipating its downsides. In that context of insider risk and DLP. This means building controls that account for both benefits of data access and the potentials for misuse. We cannot separate opportunity for risk, they must be managed in parallel. The reality of data security in 2025 is daunting. Threats today are just as likely to come from inside our organizations as they are from external hackers. Recent study shows insider threat incidents are steadily increasing. More than 4 out of 5 organizations reported at least one insider related breach in last year. These incidents range from malicious insiders stealing intellectual property to well meaning employees accidentally sharing sensitive files or forwarding regulated data to personal accounts. The financial and operational impact is profound. Breaches involving insiders routinely cost organizations millions to investigate, contain, and remediate. And the challenge is compounded by data spiral. Our information now live across cloud platforms, legacy on-prem system, personal devices, and even flow into AI tools. This fragmentation make it harder to monitor, classify, and protect data consistently. On top of that, the regulatory environment is tightening. Privacy law and industry compliance mandate impose heavy penalties for data mishandling, and non-compliance can erode customer trust overnight. Yet many organizations admit they lack unified visibility into their data risks. Surveys shows only about a third feel confident in their ability to govern and control data across all systems effectively. All of these sets the stage for why we need a new approach, one grounded in zero trust principle, where no user or device is inherently trusted and supported by advanced integrated tools that continuously protect, monitor, and cover sensitive information wherever it resides. Traditional security with the with firewall and VPN no longer holds up. People work remotely. Our data lives in SaaS apps. Insider already have access. That's why we need zero trust. It assumes no implicit trust, not in network, not in user identity, not even inside the wall. Microsoft defines zero trust with three core principles: verify explicitly, use least principal access, and assume breach. Verify explicitly means every access request is checked thoroughly. Who is the user, whether the device is healthy, where the request is coming from, and what type of data is being accessed. Least privilege means user, even admins, only get the exact permissions they need and only when they need them. This helps the blast radius small in the event an account is compromised. And assume breach means we design as if an incident will happen. We continuously monitor and segment system to prevent a single compromise from spreading and ensure that detection and response are always ready. This mindset is crucial for insider threat and data protection because instead of assuming employees are safe once inside, we continuously verify and monitor how sensitive data is being used. When we talk about zero trust for data, we are essentially talking about layered approach to protect information throughout its life cycle. Microsoft Purview, the umbrella for Microsoft 365's data governance and compliance tool, break that down into five core elements: classify and label. You cannot protect what you don't know about. The first step is discovering where your sensitive data is and labeling is appropriately. This might mean identifying files that contain personal data, financial information, trade secrets, etc., and tagging them with a sensitivity level. Information protection. Once labeled, data can be protected persistently. Labels in Microsoft 365 can automatically encrypt content and apply access restriction. For example, only certain user or group can open highly confidential document. They can also add watermarks or headers to remind users the data is sensitive. This enforces least privilege at the data object level. Data loss prevention. Not every risk is an unauthorized login. Often, it's regular users trying to share data in risky ways. DLP policy, watch for sensitive data in email, files, chat, and so on, and can block or warn when someone try to send out something they shouldn't. This address assume breach principle by checking data egress in real time. Insider risk management. If an employee starts exhibiting risky behavior, like mass downloading files after resignation, we want to catch that early. Insider risk management uses a broad array of signals to find patterns that might in- indicate an insider risk incident. This is analytics and machine learning driven detection on user activities. Very much a zero trust, verify and monitor continuously idea. Data governance. This is about minimizing exposure. The less sensitive data you have lying around, the less can leak. Microsoft Purview let us set retention policies to auto delete data that no longer needed, or conversely, retaining important record in immutable form. Disposing of old data is a crucial but often overlooked security practice aligned with zero trust. By combining these, we get a strong defense in depth for data. We will now go through each of these areas in detail, focusing on how Microsoft tools help implementing them. The first step to discover and classify sensitive data. Most organizations have spiraling data on user laptops, in email archives, and in cloud storage. Among other locations, Microsoft Purview provides tools to scan and define sensitive items systematically. For example, the Purview Content Explorer and Scanner can search through SharePoint sites, file shares, and databases, looking for items such as credit card numbers or personal identifiable information. There are out of the box search detector for common data type. If you need to find all file with, say, social security numbers or bank account details, Purview likely has a built-in sensitive information type for that pattern. As of mid 2025, Microsoft's catalog include hundreds of these patterns, ranging from financial data to medical codes, and even trainable classifiers that utilize machine learning to recognize more abstract categories of documents. Once you find sensitive data, you categorize it using sensitivity labels. Think of labels as a stamp on the data that indicate how sensitive it is. That is, a document might be labeled confidential, finance, or public. It's essential to develop a clear taxonomy for labels. Typically, a hierarchy like public, internal, confidential, highly confidential, and decide what gets what level. Microsoft advise designing a labeling schema aligned to your business and risk levels before rolling out code protection. This taxonomy will guide users and automate automated processes in constantly handling data. The classification process should be ongoing. As new data is created or ingested, you can apply auto labeling rules so that, for instance, if a document contains 10 credit card numbers, it automatically gets labeled confidential and encrypted. You also have dashboard to monitor how data is labeled across your tenant and adjust as needed. In short, knowing your data is foundational. It underpins all the protection and policies that follow. Once data is classified and labeled, sensitivity labels enable us to protect that data automatically. In Microsoft 365, a sensitivity level can be applied a combination of encryption and rights management. For example, if I label a document highly confidential, we can configure that label to encrypt the file so that only member of financial group can open it. And even then, they might only get read-only access with no printing or copying. If someone outside the company get the file, it's unreadable to them because encryption is tied to our Azure AD identities. This is powerful because protection persistence with the data itself, not just at the network layer. Additionally, label can enforce specific user actions. A typical example is email. A label can trigger a do not forward rule, meaning recipient cannot forward or print the email, and any attachment could be encrypted as well. A label might also watermark a document with company confidential on each page, a visible reminder of its sensitivity. These visual marking and automatic restrictions both protect data and encourage user to handle it more carefully. Importantly, these protections are integrated across the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. If you upload a labeled file to SharePoint site, the system knows the file is sensitive and can prevent external sharing of the label restrictions and restrict it. If you do not have a labeled document in uh, team respect the permission access to it. Office apps like Word and Excel display the label in the toolbar and even provide AI-powered recommendation, such as prompting the users to apply a confidential label if a social security number is detected. For organizations with higher security needs, Microsoft also provides enhanced encryption options. Double key encryption allow you to encrypt a document with two keys, one handled by Microsoft and one by you. So both are required to open the content. This ensures Microsoft cannot access your data independently, which is particularly used for regulated environments. Customer key allow you to supply your own encryption keys for SharePoint, OneDrive, and exchange data at rest. And advanced message encryption give you more control over email, such as setting time-limited access or revoking an encrypted message after it's being sent. This capability aren't always turned on by default, but and they are critical components of a complete zero trust data protection strategy. Now let's talk about DLP prevention, uh, data loss prevention, uh, which is essential, and it's very essentially the safety net preventing sensitive data for leaving your organization improperly. While labels and encryption protect data, DLP is watching how data is being used and moved. A classic scenario, an employee tried to email a spreadsheet that contained thousands of customer credit card number to their personal Gmail. Maybe they are just trying to work from home, but that's a big no for compliance. DLP can detect that and block the email before it leaves Exchange Online. Another case, someone copy a file with sensitive data to a USB drive or upload it to the personal cloud app. Endpoint DLP and cloud app DLP can catch that. In Microsoft 365 Purview, DLP provide a unified ways to create policies that cover a broad set of platforms. You craft a policy once and can have it applied to Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, team chats, and devices. For example, a policy might say if a document contains more than 10 instances of sensitive information like SSN or classified project keywords, and someone attempting to share it externally, then block and alert security. This single policy would work whether that sharing happened via email, via Teams message, or via someone uses a browser to upload that file to a risky website. Microsoft TLP extends beyond its own services through Defender for cloud apps integration. You can monitor and protect data in third-party cloud services. For example, if someone tried to upload a confidential file to Dropbox, that action can be governed by your DLP policy. There also the new concept of network DLP using collection policies, which can inspect network traffic for sensitive data patterns. Microsoft has even introduced the ability to detect sensitive data being sent to AI models such as ChatGPT or other generative AI endpoints. With the surge in employees using these tools, this capability is crucial. We don't want someone posting company secrets into an AI chatbot. In June 2025, Microsoft also uh, previewed browser-based DLP in Edge, which can block user from inputting sensitive information into unmanaged AI web apps. This demonstrates how DLP is adapting to changing times. What happens when DLP policy is triggered? Typically, you have three options: block the action, warn the user, or silently allow it while logging the event. Often, a policy tip will pop up on the user's screen. For example, in Outlook, your email contains confidential information. Sending it outside is not allowed. Depending on the configuration, the user may be given an override option with justification logged, or they may be blocked entirely. These interventions not only prevent incidents but also act as one of the fly training.
Think she got disconnected. I'll take it over. So we were discussing about the Microsoft DLP and the browser-based DLP in Edge, which was released in June 2025. This can block users from inputting sensitive information into unmanaged AI web apps. This intervention is not only preventing incidents from happening, but also act as on-the-fly training. Overall, the DLP is a critical component of enforcing the zero trust philosophy by ensuring sensitive data doesn't flow freely to where it shouldn't. All right, let's look a bit more at the capabilities of Microsoft DLP solution. to appreciate its breadth and intelligence. I'll start first with the coverage. Microsoft DLP is truly unified cross-platform within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. A single DLP policy can apply across Exchange email, Teams chat, files in OneDrive, or even someone working in Word or Excel on their desktop. The Endpoint DLP agent built into Windows 11 and 10 is also available for macOS. Extends this further, like activities, copying text from a confidential document into Slack or trying to upload it into the USB drive, can be intercepted. MS continues to expand DLP coverage. Recently, they added support for Power BI, so sensitive data in Power BI reports can be governed, and are piloting DLP for interactions with Copilot AI. Beyond the Microsoft apps, Defender for Cloud Apps integration allow DLP policies to actually monitor thousands of third-party cloud services. Microsoft CASB approach utilizes APIs and proxies to secure applications such as Salesforce, Box, Dropbox, and other. The scale is massive, tens of thousands of cloud app catalog, even though organizations typically use a subset. The key strength of Microsoft DLP is content inspection. It doesn't rely on banned keywords, it validates patterns. For example, it can detect a real credit card number by format and checksum, or as a US social security number by both pattern and contextual keywords like social security or SSN. Policies can require multiple evidence beyond triggering. Machine learning classifiers also add further accuracy. For instance, like flagging the source code files even without specific keywords. This actually reduces false positive while catching the real incidents. One of the most exciting advancement is the adaptive protection. I hope you everyone know about this. Here, Microsoft leverages insider risk management called as IRM signals to adjust the DLP policies dynamically. Not all users poses the same level of risk. For example, let's say a user named John Doe is flagged as a high risk insider, such as someone who has mass downloaded confidential files ahead of termination. He can be automatically placed under stricter DLP controls. His attempts to email confidential files would be entirely blocked, while low risk users, such as Zane, might receive a warning for the same behavior. This is zero trust in action, continuously assessing risk and adapting controls. From an operational perspective, every DLP trigger generates log and can raise alerts. Security teams can investigate incidents through the DLP dashboard, which shows context, as we know, such as snippets of content around the sensitive data. They can annotate cases, mark false positives, and even refine policies. Finally, the override section, which was even discussed by my speaker, Shilpi. This is basically providing with justification, and it also provides us necessary flexibility. Sometimes business need some exceptions. If a user overwrites a block, their justification is of course logged, providing insights into legitimate use cases, gaps in policies, or areas that need training. So in summary, DLP is comprehensive and intelligent. It plugs the hole through which sensitive data might escape while adapting to user risk level, and it integrates tightly with other Microsoft tools for a unified zero trust strategy. Let's turn our focus to insider risk, a key point here. These are threats originating from within the organization. It's a broad category. It includes the malicious insider, someone intentionally causing harm or maybe stealing data, and the accidental insider, someone who through negligence or mistakes causes a security breach. Why are insiders such a big deal? Because they already have some level of trust and access. Employee need access to data and systems to do their job. A salesman can pull a list of customers that's normal. An engineer can access source code that's part of their job. These actions wouldn't raise an eyebrow ordinarily. But if that salesman downloads the entire customer database and takes it to a competitor, or that engineer copies repository code to a personal device, that are malicious act hidden among permissible activities. Traditional security tools might not catch this because of the system. It just looks like a user access file allowed. The statistic around insider threats are eye-opening. Studies show that more than 80% of the organizations have experienced at least one insider-related incident recently. Almost half reported that the insider issues are increasingly year over year. Insider breaches are also extremely costly. Research places the average annual cost due to insiders in tens of millions of dollars. Once you account for remediation, loss of intellectual property, regulatory fines, and even lawsuits. For example, if an insider leaks thousands of health records, the organization could face HIPAA fines and class action litigation. Common insider scenarios, including departing employees who stockpile data before they resign or are terminated, client list designs, source code, sometimes out of a sense of ownership, sometimes to benefit their next job, and in some cases to sell. Other scenarios include data snooping, such as employees looking up records that should not, they should not, or modifying or destroying data out of revenge. On the accidental side, an employee might lose a laptop with unencrypted sensitive files or fall for a phishing email, leading to their credentials being used for malicious activity. From the system's perspective, it's still a legitimate account performing actions, which makes this as an insider incident as well. Detection is hard because insider actions often blend in with normal behavior. The key is looking at patterns and context. Is this user activity typical for their role, or are they accessing their data they have never touched before? Is there a sudden spike in the volume of data they are handling? These anomalies can be early indicators, but this must also be handled carefully. Employee monitoring has privacy implications, and no organization wants to create a culture of surveillance paranoia. This is why Microsoft approach is different and it's important. Their insider risk solutions pseudonymize user identities during investigation and only reveal when absolutely necessary, helping reduce bias and protect employee privacy. All of these underscores the need for a dedicated insider risk management capability as part of a zero trust data protection strategy. Assume breach must also mean assuming an insider could be involved, and that we need to verify and monitor using the user's activities just as closely as we do to external threats. Now, Microsoft answers to the insider threat challenge is Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management, often called IRM. This is an insider risk detection and management platform integrated into the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. Its goal is not to record every single thing employees do, but to intelligently surface risky activities that could indicate an insider incident proving. IRM is built on signals. Think of the countless logs and events in Microsoft 365. You have logins, file reads, edits, emails, DLP rule triggers, and more. Normally, these exist in separate silos. However, IRM correlates them by user. It can also ingest HR signals, for example, notification that a user is leaving the company on a specific date. It can also ingest security incident data by pulling all these together. IRM looks for patterns that match known risky scenarios. MS has developed machine learning driven playbooks. They also have developed preset analytics model for scenarios like data theft by departing employees, exfiltration to personal cloud accounts, leaks of sensitive data, or repeated overrides of DLP alerts. These help distinguish normal activity from anomalous behavior. For example, downloading files by employees is normal, but if someone who has never accessed the finance folder suddenly downloads 500 files at 3 a.m., 2 weeks after resigning, that's not normal. That's unusual. IRM would flag it. Another example is a user who usually prints 5 pages a month suddenly prints 500 pages of confidential documents. Admin configure the insider risk policies to define what to watch for. MS provides templates such as departing employees, which applies to users on a termination list and monitor their activity 30 days before and after departure. Policies can focus on specific content types, actions of interest, for example, USB copy, external email, or even downloads, and thresholds. Other policies might focus on data leaks or HR related violations. So when a policy is stripped, IRM generally IRM will generate an alert and often automatically creates a case. So investigators can then open the case and see a timeline of the user activities. For example, on June 1st, download from SharePoint. On June 5th, file copy to USB. June 6th, an attempt to email sensitive file externally that was blocked by DLP. The timeline aggregates all events to paint a picture and help determine intent. Privacy is a core design element, as I discussed earlier. Microsoft recognized that insider monitoring can feel invasive and must comply with privacy regulations. By default, IRM masks the user identities, showing investigators something like user123 instead of a real name. This reduces unconscious bias by focusing the investigation on behaviors rather than individuals. If investigators find credible evidence of risk, authorized roles can unmask the user and then action is logged for accountability. The RBAC ensures only specific investigators can view these cases. So overall, IRM is about early detection and thorough investigation. It doesn't automatically punish users. Instead, it actually surfaces risky organizations so organizations can respond appropriately. Sometimes that response involves user education, while at other times it may require HR or legal action. The key is that organizations now have visibility into insider risks that were previously hidden. One of the most powerful synergies MS has built in between insider risk management and DLP is called adaptive protection. Traditionally, DLP policies are static. They apply the same to everyone, but not everyone in an organization poses the same level of the risk at the same time. Adaptive protection uses insights from insider risk management to fine-tune DLP responses dynamically. Think of it as an AI-driven feedback loop. If IRM analytics indicate that a user is showing signs of potential data theft, the system can automatically tighten DLP controls for that user. Suddenly, user A cannot do certain actions they normally could because they have been flagged as high risk. Meanwhile, user B, who is behaving normally, isn't burdened over with restrictive policies. MS new data security posture management, called as DSPM dashboard, highlights these opportunities. For example, if it may flag a pattern like users downgrading sensitive labels and then trying to exfiltrate data, in one click, admins can deploy a corresponding IRM policy to detect that behavior and a DLP policy to block it. There is even a preset indicator for downgrade label then exfiltrate, since that's a known tactic insiders use to bypass controls. Let's illustrate with a scenario. Suppose Alice has been marked as a part of a layoff. IRM is already monitoring her closely under a departing employee policy. Over a week, Alice begins assessing project file she never worked on and copying data late at night. IRM flags her as high risk. Now adaptive protections take over. If Alice tries to access or to email a sensitive file, the system blocks it outright and alerts her manager or security. Meanwhile, Bob in another department without no red flags might be allowed to send a similar file with only a warning. Another example involves Edge for Business. If a high risk user attempts to paste sensitive data into an AI chatbot online, the action can be blocked entirely. A low risk user, however, might still be permitted limited interaction with less sensitive prompts. This capability is truly dynamic. It, it continuously recalculates a user risk score using AI and machine learning. adjusting enforcement in near real time. That's the zero trust in action, continuous verification, and adaptive control. It's worth noting that adaptive protection requires Microsoft 365 E5 or equivalent add-ons. But once licensed, enabling it straightforward in the Purview portal, admin can simply click on Insider Risk Management and link it with the DLP policy and choose which policies will have adaptive scopes. Also, Security Copilot and DSPM can provide explanations and recommendations for why certain protective actions are applied. The key takeaway from this is by combining the insider risk insights with DLP actions, Microsoft delivers a proactive self tuning defense. This is a major leap in preventing insider incidents because it mitigates the riskiest situations in a tailored, preemptive way. Let's focus on another aspect of data reality is that the organizations often keep far data too much for far too long. And every gigabit of sensitive data you keep is a gigabyte that could potentially be breached. A zero trust approach to data also means practicing good data hygiene, retaining information only as long as necessary, and deleting it when it's no longer needed. The Purview data lifecycle management features help automate this process. With Purview, you can define retention policies. For example, delete all email in users' mailbox after 5 years, except if it's tagged as a business record, or keep all Teams chat messages for 1 year, then remove them. Once these policies are turned on, M365 automatically handles deletions in the background. Users may not even notice when own content falls away. Conversely, you might have rules to retain data. For example, all documents in the legal site must be kept for a minimum of 10 years. Even if a user tries to delete such a file, the system maintains a hidden copy until the retention period expires. This ensures compliance within laws. Compliance with laws and internal requirements. In the financial sector, regulations like SEC 17A4 require certain communications to be retained immutably for years. Healthcare organizations, on the other hand, must preserve patient records. On the flip side, privacy laws like GDPR emphasize not keeping personal data longer than needed. So you might set policies to automatically delete customer data after a set time frame. Automation here prevents human error or neglect. You won't forget to clean up database if a policy enforces it. Purview also offers formal records management. Certain documents can be declared as records, which locks them against modification or removal, except by someone with special disposition rights. This is vital for legal holds or regulatory purposes. At the end of their life cycle, a records manager can review and approve disposal, adding a human checkpoint when needed. So, from a user standpoint, most of this retention and deletion is invisible, but admins have full visibility in the compliance center where they can see such policies applied to which content and view reports of deletion events. So basically, data lifecycle management equals risk reduction plus compliance fulfillment. It ensures that we are not holding the data longer than necessary, minimizing what attackers or malicious insider can access, while also keeping what is required in a systematic, auditable way. That's key part of zero trust data strategy. Assume breach and don't keep access sensitive information around to be breached in the first place. Before we talk about the Microsoft solution, let's clarify why compliance automation matters. It's not a most glamorous part of security, but it's incredibly important. Every organization has some set of regulatory or policy requirements to follow. It could be industry regulations, finance, healthcare, etc., data privacy laws, or internal standards. Ensuring you meet all those requirements and can prove it, it's a big, big job. Traditionally, compliance was handled with a lot of manual effort. Think of it like an audit. Someone from compliance or IT goes down a checklist. Do we have data encryption? Check. Do we have backups? Check. Or can we show of evidence of these? Let's gather screenshots or config exports. Multiply that by hundreds of controls and several frameworks. It's easy to see how this becomes a nightmare of spreadsheets and SharePoint folders of evidence. It also is periodic, meaning you have to do once a year. So in between these audits, you might drift out of compliance and not know until the next check. The stakes are high. We have seen regulators issue multi-million dollars fine for data protection failures. And if you do have a breach, one of the first questions asked is, did they have reasonable controls in place? If you can demonstrate that, consequences worsen. Automated continuous compliance can help catch an issue before breach happens or before an auditor finds it. Automation in compliance means using tooling to continuously monitor and even enforce compliance wherever possible. Microsoft provides something called Secure Score on the security side, which is a numerical score of how many recommended security controls you have adopted. There's also a compliance score on the compliance side, which is more about meeting the regulatory controls. These tools automatically check settings like multi-factor authentication is enabled for all admin accounts. If yes, points of audit. If not, it flags it. I'll like to compare it to a continuous health monitor versus the annual physical exam. The continuous monitor can alert you to an unhealthy trend now, rather than your doctor telling you next year that you should have been exercising more all year. Compliance automation tools are those that continuously monitor your organization's adherence to security controls and regulatory requirements. Given that context, Microsoft has provided a tool to help with exactly this, which we will dive into next. Purview Compliance Manager. Microsoft Purview Compliance Manager is a star of a compliance automation in M365 world. Think of it as an umbrella that brings together all the requirements you care about and continuously checks Microsoft 365 and even other connected clouds against them. When you open Compliance Manager, the first thing you see is a compliance score. This is a percentage of score achieved out of total possible based on the controls you have implemented. The tool comes loaded with a huge library of templates. As of 2025, there are over 360 assessments covering global and industry regulations. Each control is tied to improvement actions defined by Microsoft. For example, a GDPR requirement to secure personal data might include enabling DLP, encryption, or retention policies. The compliance manager tells you exactly which M365 features or configurations satisfy that requirement. A key advantage is automation. Compliance Manager integrates with Secure Score and Defender signals to automatically test many technical controls. For example, if the requirement is require MFA for global admins, Compliance Manager can check your Entra ID configuration. If MFA is enabled, you get the credit automatically. If not, it's flagged as pending. This gives you real-time compliance visibility without manual work. So when auditors come, Compliance Manager becomes invaluable. Instead of scrambling for evidence, you can export a detailed report that shows your compliance status, responsible owners, and attached evidence. Some organizations even grant auditors read-only access so they can self-serve evidence during audits. Finally, Microsoft continuously updates the content as new regulatory requirements come or existing ones evolve. Templates are added or refreshed. So recent example include the framework for the EU AI Act or the NIST AI guidance. This is like having a regulatory consultant built into the product, keeping your checklist current without you chasing changes. So basically, the compliance manager acts as a control tower for compliance. It automates wherever possible, provides structure and workflow where human input is required, and ensures nothing slips through the cracks. One of the most exciting developments in the Microsoft security and compliance space is the introduction of Security Copilot. I believe everyone may have seen the UI and how it works. This is an AI assistant powered by LLM and tailored specifically for security and compliance tasks. We are seeing its impact in several areas relevant to our discussion, starting with alert triage with AI. So the organizations often face dozens of insider risk or DLP alerts daily, sometimes far more, but the manual approach can only review a portion of them. So this means serious incidents can slip through unnoticed. The AI triage agent changes this by reading each alert, analyzing details like user history, risky behavior, and trigger policies, and then prioritizing them. It might label an alert as needs attention with an explanation such as this user has multiple prior incidents and high volume downloads. It's basically having a junior analyst working 24 by 7, ensuring that high risk issues get surfaced immediately while trivial ones falls lower in the queue. The end result is the faster response and fewer blind spots. We have natural language questions and answers. On the compliance side, Security Copilot enables conversational queries across the environment. Instead of manually running multiple searches, you could ask Copilot find an instance of Project Obsidian files being shared externally last month. It pulls from DLP logs, insider risk cases, and other sources to give a cohesive response. The transform this transforms compliance analysis into a fluid, interactive experience. Then we have incident and policy insights. AI can spot patterns that might be overlooked. For example, Copilot might surface that as HR department had an unusual spike in data transfer this week. It also helps with content summarization and drafting. Documentation is a big burden for compliance teams. Incident reports, policy documents. The Security Copilot can summarize the incident timeline and impact. It's important to stress that AI isn't just an assistant, it's not a replacement. Analyst and compliance officer review and validate the outputs. So this integration of AI is Microsoft's way of tackling both the scale of data and the complexity of threats and regulations. As we move towards the conclusion, let's recap the key points from this session. Zero trust is essential for data protection. We can no longer rely on network parameters alone. We must protect the data itself and treat every access with skepticism. Zero trust isn't a buzzword, it's a practical approach that, when applied to data, means things like labeling data, enforcing least privilege access, and assuming a breach could happen any moment. M365 gives us an integrated solution. We have seen already how Microsoft Purview brings multiple capabilities under one roof. Instead of buying one product for DLP, another for insider threat, and then another for compliance, and then struggle to integrate them, Purview offers a unified approach. This integration is a huge advantage. It simplifies management for your admins and provides coherent protection across the cloud services and endpoints. Let's do not ignore the insider risk. It's tempting to focus on external hackers since they make headlines, but insiders are implicated in a larger share of incidents. With the shift to remote work and ubiquitous data access, the insider boundaries blur too. Contractors, partners, compromised accounts all play into. If something does slip through, you have an audit trail to investigate and respond. Automate where possible and use AI to your advantage. We have more IT assets and regulations than ever, which means manual compliance manager is a losing battle. Similarly, the AI capabilities are growing and it can help you to save your precious time, whether it's sorting through thousands of alerts or find one that matters, or answering a complex questions in seconds that could take hours to research. Build a culture of continuous improvement and collaboration. Deploying these solutions isn't set and forget it. You have to continue and refine policies. HR should be involved in insider risk cases. to handle the human element. Legal should be involved in compliance and any serious insider investigations. Also, keep users in loop when people understand why a policy exists. They are more likely to support it rather than circumvent it. Ultimately, implementing zero trust for data with M365 toolsets will help organization to stay resilient. You can adopt new technologies like deploying Copilot AI for users more confidently because you know you have controls to prevent misuse or leakage of data through those avenues. It's all about enabling the business securely. With this, thank you for joining this session. Hopefully, you now have a deeper understanding of how to merge zero trust principle with the real world data protection needs using Microsoft solutions. With these insights, you can go back and strengthen your own organization defenses and compliance postures. This concludes our presentation for today. Please feel free to reach out to connect, and I'll be happy to give answers to any of your queries.